And here we go. This is it. The final panel for Crucial Con 2020. We've got my, let's see, I don't want to push it too far and say my good pal, Joe Gomez, but I think we're pretty good buds right about now. So here he is, Joel, the man, Gomez. How's it going?
Hey, how's everybody doing? How you doing, Jimmy? You're revealing our relationship here. I don't know what's going on. It shows in the shirts, right? Like
yes, that's true. Look at that. This is the custom shirt. No one else has it. I think like me, you, Brian, Fran, I don't know, whoever else you gave some shirt. These are the customers you gave to us at one of the cons, at the Phoenix cons. I think it was one of the first times I met you though over there.
Yeah. It was I think it was the second or third chapter of La Muerta that we had worked on, and I was just like really digging what we were doing, and I was excited. I just felt grateful, man. I really wanted to show my appreciation and just be, and just a fun crew you guys all are, and I was like, this is so cool. I want to do something fun for these guys, and so I have a friend who he has a t-shirt company, Tino Evil, and they helped me print these up, and it's just a fun thing, you know.
And also, the design is right behind you. Your design is right on the wall. So, how is it possible?
It was like one of those things where when we came up with the sketch for it, I had suggested it to Brian, and I told him because I had this particular pen that I used. It's like a white, like fat brush pen, and when I would put it on this black paper, it just reminded me of these old velvet paintings I'd see at Mexican restaurants that I would go to, where it was like on black velvet, and you'd see like a bullfighter or whatever, and it was just like, wow. And so the approach of using that pen on that paper had that feel to it, and I told him, like, let's put her in a mariachi suit, just black and white, and it'll go for it, he said, and we did it, and it turned out great,
Yeah, one of my favorite shirts, by the way. Yeah, love it.
Awesome, thanks, man.
Like, so stunning. Just love black and white. As you can see right behind you on the
yeah, people really dig it. They're always asking for this particular image as a shirt. I don't know, maybe one day we can get Brian to
put it on a Kickstarter. Maybe as a.
You never know, right? Never know.
It's just missing the logo, though. It needs the big La Muerta logo.
Yeah, I think so. But thematically, it goes with everything Coffin, right? Like, we're all into the black and white, and so it's just like, I don't know, it fits. That's part of the fun of being part of this fun crew that you guys are. It's like, if you like monsters, you like scary movies, in the sense of La Muerta, if you like crime noir and edgy stuff, you're gonna love what we produce,
So those who are not familiar with Joel Gomez, he is a series illustrator for La Muerta. So we've got how many? We've got six chapters now.
We got 6, and I'm working on chapter 7.
Not only are you working on chapter 7, aren't you also with Mike McLean, the co-writer? You are also help planning. What's your role with that? You're doing more than just illustrating. You're also
right. I'm basically I'm co-plotting the story with Mike, and shit, man, at the end of the day, really, it's what it is. It's that Mike and Brian, they created this original concept, La Muerta, with La Muerta Descent, and the way they had written that particular script was just so it was really tight, and it felt very much like a great 3-act film, and it kind of touched on all the things that I remember from some of these revenge movies, and very, very deliberately. You can sense that's what they were going for, but they did such a bang up job with the concept that it was so easy to imagine that first chapter as a movie. And so it was very easy for me to get acclimated with what these two guys were building. And it was like these two cooks in the kitchen, and I was walking by like, wow, that smells amazing. And I really caught on to what they were doing. And so it felt that with each chapter, I just kept getting further and further immersed in this concept that Brian and Mike had created. And in doing so, I became a little bit more familiar with what they were doing. And I got to know Mike a lot better. And in doing all of those things, it kind of made for a more cohesive unit between the three of us, as well as Cece De La Cruz, the colorist. And it made it very easy for me to kind of pick his brain and figure out what he's going for. And in plotting this new chapter of La Muerta with him, he's still a writer, man. It's just visually this helps create things that he and I can kind of work on together. And the further I go along with these guys, the more I'm into it. And now it's at a point where I'm trying to be one with Mike, so that it's almost like the writing and drawing almost feel like is one cohesive thing. And it's fun because, like I said, I've known Mike for a while, and it's easier to know what he's going for, or to just feel comfortable enough to ask him, like, what is this, or does this work for you? And sometimes, we try to omit or avoid doing some of the same things, and at times we can mention, like, hey, let's not go that way, or let's try to do this other thing instead. And there's a lot of advantage in working with these people as long as I have as a unit, and so I'm grateful. And the thing is that there's an advantage to that as a comics creator and storyteller, you don't always get the option or the opportunity to work with the same people as long as we've worked together. And so I try to take advantage of that and lean on our strengths, or kind of build up on certain things. And it's been fun. It's been a fun ride, and it's just really great because I feel that with each chapter of La Muerta, it gets I'm pushing the art a little more. We're getting a little bit more involved with the details of things and the characters and their backgrounds and their history, and then with the experience of drawing all these things, you become a lot more familiar with these things. And in a weird way, when I was younger and I used to read a lot of Marvel or DC books, you would find, like, sometimes artists would have a run on a book, and you'd see them getting comfortable with the character, and somewhere near the end of their run is when they'd start drawing this character in a way that seemed most comfortable to them, but the adventure was almost already over. So you kind of they saved the best for last, I guess. But in a way, with La Muerta, it's like a constantly growing and evolving thing. So it's been awesome. It's been a cool ride.
And I can see it in the artwork. It's just getting more and more lush, and it just seems like you say, you get more comfortable with it, and you're adding more of the Gomez style to it, and it's just getting, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, it's just getting more dimensional for sure in your artwork.
It's been fun. I mean, part of it too is that you realize what's working and what isn't. Like in the earlier chapters, there was a lot of back and forth with Brian, and rightfully so. I mean, these are his characters. He created them, and he wants them portrayed in a certain way. And so working those logistics out and getting it to where it was added to the growth later. Between the first two chapters, there's a lot of like, oh, okay, I got it. And by chapters 3 and 4, it was like, oh, I finally do understand what they like. And now I can not only deliver that, but add to that. How do I add more to that? And so now we're in chapter 7, and it's getting to where I'm trying to get as involved as possible with Mike on setting up sequences or just reasons for why a character will do a certain thing. And it's great because, like, in some ways, I get to kind of get more involved with Mike, and he can give me a little bit more detail on what he wants to see. And I think it makes for a better story overall, because then he's not writing something and then I'm just interpreting it a different way. That's going to happen at all points, with the creative team. It's a collaboration, but the thing is that when you can distill it down to a really very, very specific kind of style where you both know and have the synchronicity, for lack of a better word, a synchronicity to what you're doing, you kind of start knowing what your team's strengths are, and you can play towards them.
Speaking of chapter 7, we've got just announced during KushaCon the Death Apocalypse, and chapter 7 is coming to Kickstarter. Wait, I can't do it backwards. I don't know if Brian does that. So La Muerta Onslaught number 7 in May 2021 is the Kickstarter, and this is the one that you're going to be so you're currently working on, and
correct.
You help plot that story.
Basically, Mike and I will go back and forth, hammering out an idea, and then I'll throw some like concepts or ideas to Mike, and then he'll give me, which is kind of neat too, by the way. I'll tell you, because I guess Mike doesn't always just kind of throw it out there, but like in these conversations, you'd learn more about the intent of certain characters or things that Mike had devised that maybe he just didn't find a need to share that information. Where, you know, we would talk about, for example, Loco, and like, well, how about this theme park? Like, he's got this dilapidated theme park, and like, how does that work? And it's like, well, no, Riz is in charge of all the security measures that happen there. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So then, and then through that, you realize, well, then how? That's pretty cool. Like, he's got like a team of support. You know, he's got like, he's got Rizza, who's kind of the security and like electronics, internet. And he has Alfredo, who's kind of my more of like his manservant. Like, he'll fix the car and, you know, help him patch him up when he's injured or whatever. And in doing that, Mike explained how, to me anyway, he explained how Loco's support team is an extension of him, and he'd always thought this up, and he kind of projects this "I'm too crazy" kind of attitude, but in the back of his head, he's still actually planning, and that whole thing is a front for you to kind of be busy with trying to go like, oh shit, this guy's a strange, deranged, crazy person. I need to figure out what to do, but he's more of a Batman in the back of his mind. He's already planning his fourth and fifth move ahead of you. So, and in that popped up in a conversation with Mike where it just kind of carried on from an explanation of something, and in doing that, I was like, wow, man, that's great. Like, I had never heard it that way, so that's great to know. And so those little nuances, those little nuggets, maybe not immediately, but they will have a resulting effect in the way I portray the character. You know, maybe in a panel, you'll see him kind of take a side glance at something, or it's just that nugget of information is too tasty of a morsel for this character to not use it. And so with these concepts and with these people that I work with, you know, Brian, Mike, and Cece, there's so much to bounce off of and be inspired by, and so like it all ends up helping the greater good of the story, because I love it.
So as a series illustrator, so knowing that, it almost sounds like you're like an actor. So it's almost like you internalize that character, and then you can portray that one scene that you're going to draw, but you have to. But by knowing all the small little details, you can like act it out. What's that? What do they call it? The type of acting where you internalize it. But yeah, so it's almost like so you're more than just an artist. You're an actor too, to try to tell the story. Is that correct? Or
it's more like I kind of imagine it as more of like a cinematographer or somebody who blocks in a shot or composes an image, where you're trying to get as much information about what's happening in this frame. And so in doing so, you learn like, oh, what's important, or what do we need to have the character physically doing? And then the second part of that would be like, what are they emotionally going through at the time? What are they feeling? So that sometimes what they're feeling could be much stronger, or where you want the reader to read into rather than what they're doing. What they're doing could sometimes just be the busy work. Whereas what's really the story is how they're feeling or what they're going through emotionally. And so sometimes there's a juxtaposition that you can play around with as an artist, but you have to be keen to that idea. You have to be open to it. And in this story, I'm always looking for those moments to really build up that character, because whether people know it or not, sometimes those are the hooks that catch a reader and make them, you know, have empathy or, you know, project themselves as this character. And so that's the beauty of this particular story with these people, is that we get to do those kinds of things. And so I'm trying to pay more and more attention to that with my teammates, so that we can build on that and reveal more about the character. And in the end, I kind of think those are the things that make books like La Muerta stand out on the rack, because there's a lot of great books out there in general, and the thing that we can do to make our book better is almost like create layers to this story. It's almost like an onion, where on the outside of it, it's like this good versus evil kind of thing, but in the layer beneath it, it's like maybe someone's fighting the evil within, and maybe even a layer below that is like another type of story. And so those are things that I'm keen to kind of target and kind of extract from my teammates to figure out, like, could this help make our story better? Because yeah, there's going to be bullets, yeah, there's going to be monsters, and yeah, there's going to be violence. But what else can we add to it that would give this so much more flavor and make the reader go like, man, why did I enjoy this story so much? So to me, that's the beauty of working with Brian and Mike and just being part of the Coffin crew, is that it's such a rewarding and challenging experience bringing these unique stories to life, because it's not a DC book, it's not a Marvel book, it's a Coffin Comics book. And it's how are these characters, specifically La Muerta, Loco, any of these characters, like, this is their first time being portrayed, and how are we going to view them? What do we share with the readers about them? And that to me is the most challenging but yet rewarding aspect of it. It's like a different form of entertainment, but you're very familiar with the medium,
And you mentioned the violence, and I love the violence. After rereading it all again, I'm like, oh my God, this is so violent. I love it. The hyper violence is so great.
But that's a cool thing too when you do it right. It's almost like a ballet. There's like a craziness to the violence, but if you add like an interesting twist to what the character's going through or something, it doesn't seem just so based in the violence itself. The violent acts end up becoming or having meaning towards the character. So
yes, there's not just violence for violence sake, that's for sure. Yeah, there's a great story behind it, and you get the violence with it, just like any great action movie. So folks watching, if you have any questions for Joel, just post it in the comments. We'll fire away. But so what we said that what this panel was going to be about is the history of Joel. And I want to go way back to the beginning. Little Joe, with the first time you started drawing. How did you start drawing? How did you discover comics? Let's hear that. Let's go back to the origin story.
Yeah, I think it was probably third, fourth, fifth grade, somewhere around there. My dad used to keep a huge stack of comics, like right outside the bathroom door, like just a stack of books. He mostly read DC Comics, lots of Jack Kirby. He had some Fantastic Four, some X-Men, lots of monster books, lots of Where Creatures Roam. He had a lot of creepy, those kinds of magazines, horror, and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of really cool, creepy magazines with awesome ads for alien models and kits and toys from the first movie. And I used to just freak out because I never saw the movie at that time. And I was just like, shit, those look scary, whatever. So yeah, that was like third, fourth, fifth grade. I think that's when it started seeping into my mind. And I think in late fifth, sixth grade is when I started drawing. And I kind of just would doodle on and off. And I think in high school, it's pretty funny. In high school, I was becoming a little more serious about it. But I think in my senior year in high school, I got like an F in art, and I was like, what is going on, but it was that weird time, I was 16, 17. I stopped reading comics. I was more, concerned with hanging out and, partying and dating girls. And so I think the art took a back seat for a little while. And then when I graduated and I moved out to LA, I started going to the art center at night. They had an art center at night program, and I got a scholarship for that and started exploring art more and looking into it. And I kind of got into comics late. I was kind of, goofing off a lot too early on. And I think the one big push at a young age was at 18. I think I was 17 or 18. I found out where Rob Liefeld lived, and I drove to his house, and I went and knocked on his door, and I had like a stack of like typing paper with just a bunch of sketches on it. And I wanted to show him, like, hey, I can draw or whatever. And he was there, and I knocked on the door and asked for Rob, and he's like, who is it? And he had like one of those metal gates in the front of his, I couldn't see in, but I'm sure he could see out. And the front door was open, but the metal gate was closed. And I said, oh, my name's Joe Gomez. And he's like, okay, I have an office for this. And when he said that, I kind of just got deflated. And I said, all right, well, I'm sorry to bother you. And then like there was a pause and I hear the gate unlock. And he's like, where'd you come from? And I told him, I drove out from Monrovia, California. And he was in Fullerton at the time, which is about an hour and a half drive. And so he's like, that's a long way. And he opens the door. And I'm just like, wow, holy shit. And so he lets me in. It was just such a like burned in my memory kind of moment. I remember on the TV, there was Good Morning America, and they were interviewing William Shatner for a Star Trek movie. I think it was something country or something. Anyway, and so I just remember seeing William Shatner. I'm sitting in this kitchen living room area with Rob, and he's going through all my typing paper, awful drawings, and he's just like, oh, these are cool, but you need to work on your storytelling, and you need to work on panels, sequential art. And I was like, oh, how do I do that? And he taught me the inverted Z formation thing, that a page, that a viewer looks at a comic and how they run across the page, and you need to design your pages to have that kind of flow to you. Just all these nuggets of information, and then I went home. I drove home. I was on cloud 9 that I met Rob, and he gave me the number to his studio or whatever, and I must have called it once or twice, and it was right before Youngblood just kind of blew up on the scene, and I just never picked it up again. I never looked into it, and maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, when I started going to the Art Center at night and started going to junior colleges to take figure drawing, I started to think, like, if I don't jump on this is going to go away. And so, like, that's, I started really trying to pursue art a little bit more realistically and pushing it harder. But I didn't really get into I was like 27. I got into Top Cow Productions, and they didn't even bring me in. They were just nice enough to not kick me out of the studio. I was basically loitering, hanging out with the artists, just being friends with them and learning and picking their brains. And through that experience, they found out, or I found out as well, but I was really adept at doing really busy backgrounds. And at the time, Top Cow was still doing really well. They had Witchblade, they had Fathom, they had Aphrodite 9, they had Tomb Raider. They had so many other books, but a lot of these guys, a lot of the effort they were putting into the books meant they were always either behind or, the books were late. And so it was just a lucky circumstance that here was this guy who could fill in doing background work where you wouldn't notice him, and help these guys with their books and be a little more timely. And so at first it was a lot of fun because I got to, work with guys like Kucha and specifically Francis Manipool, Randy Green. And I think I did the most amount of work with Francis Manipool on Witchblade at Top Cow. And that gave me the really first understanding of what it was to be a comic book artist. And I just kept going with that. And I think at the time I was just trying to be better at the specific, goal, which was doing backgrounds. So I really just studied my ass off and worked hard and found a lot of photo books that kind of reflected the qualities they wanted in their backgrounds. And I just used the opportunity. I kept building on that. And I ended up working with Mike Turner on a couple of issues of Soulfire. I had worked with Mark Silvestri like on a page or two, but at the time he was busy with other things. And those experiences, I just kept, building those up. And I did a Wizard World in Los Angeles, and Jim Lee just happened to be at the show and walked by my table, and he saw some of the pages for this thing I was working on with Francis Manipool, which was called Iron and the Maiden at that time, but it was now called Iron Saint. The creator of Jack and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot, Jason Rubin, was coming up with a new property. And so he had handpicked Francis and myself to illustrate the book. And I would get to spend 2 to 3 days per page on these backgrounds, which is unheard of, And so I was going to town, man. I was just really just going off on these backgrounds, going apeshit on it. And all of those pages I carried with me to the convention, Wizard World LA. And Jim Lee, like I say, he happened to be walking around, came by my table, checked him out. He really liked what he saw, and he just was talking to me, and I couldn't. I was kind of fanboying out, and I couldn't figure out, like, what is this guy? What does he want? Like, I have nothing but backgrounds in this book. Like, I can't imagine, like, I don't. And he's Jim Lee, you know, and so he asked for my contact, and I thought, hey, he's just being nice. He's just probably wondering, what the hell is this guy doing? He's like drawing these insane backgrounds for what the hell is this, you know? And so I thought he was just trying to make conversation. I'd never hear from him again or whatever, you know. A week or two pass, and he reaches out and contacts me, and he offers me the opportunity to work at Wildstorm as a production staff artist, staff penciler. And so I'm just like, wow, holy shit, this is amazing. I hadn't drawn a single page of comics in my life, you know, only drawn backgrounds up to this point, right? Sure, I do the occasional pinup or whatever. I just wasn't, I wasn't completely in it at that time, you know. And so offered me the job, come out, move to San Diego, work at Wildstorm, and I start doing my first sequential pages. The first full sequential book I drew in pencils was Nightmare on Elm Street #4. They were at the time, felt like in a weird spot, not sure what they were doing. They seemed to be doing a lot of horror licensing books at the time, because Wildstorm was still an extension of DC, but I don't know. But yeah, opportunity, took it, you know, ran with it as much as I could, got to do Lost Boys, based off the movie. I did a sequel, a comic book sequel, which was a lot of fun, you know, vampires and horror stuff. So that was cool. Nightmare on Elm Street was fun. Got to work on The Authority, The Lost Year, did a couple of pages of Gears of War. I think my time at Wildstorm was more about learning the craft of being a full-fledged comic book artist, which was great, but it was also really challenging, and it was weird for me because I loved the medium and I loved sequential art, but I think at Wildstorm was when I realized that, like, I wasn't as into the characters I grew up with as an adult. I wasn't as into them as I was as a kid. And so I don't know, maybe that part of it made it seem less exciting, or it just wasn't for me, maybe, you know. And a couple months pass, and then they shut down Wildstorm, and I kind of go out and become a freelancer. And I started doing more conventions because I was a freelancer. So I needed to, you know, supplement my income doing this stuff. And I met Brian at a Phoenix show that was at the Arizona Cardinals, their stadium. One year they had a convention there, and I met Brian there, and he offered me the chance to work on La Muerta. And it was funny because, like, I told Brian, like, hey man, I don't really do like the bad girl stuff. Like, I can't do that stuff. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's what I'm talking to you. And I was like, oh, all right. And he got me really good with that, because then I realized, well, shit, what does this guy want? And so I said, well, I'm curious. Like, I'd love to learn more about this project. He sends me this pitch book that he had worked on, I guess, with either Mike, Francisca. I'm not sure. It was a big pitch book with all the ideas and the intent and everything. And it's like, they just looked amazing. It was so, like, well thought out. And I dug it. I really dug it. And I said, yeah, this sounds great. And I said, but I can't start till, I think it was like January or February. I said, I can't start till then. He's like, oh man, I'm so sorry. It needs to get going at this particular time, and that's not it. And I was like, ah, shit. And so I was so bummed that I missed it. And like a couple weeks passed, and I'm just like, damn, like, I really that would have been a cool thing. And it was, whatever, you know, we got to keep moving. And then like a month later, Brian reaches out, and he's like, hey, just want to check and see if you may have availability. The previous thing didn't quite work out. You know, it was an amicable part, and the guy's super cool, but it just wasn't a fit. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely interested. And so that was kind of the start of it. And with each chapter, it just kept pushing me in this direction. And to be honest with you, like, I don't think I really started to become like, or I didn't really push myself creatively until I started doing stuff for La Muerta and for Coffin Comics. And only because I think in my head, I realized, like, this is really challenging. Like, nobody's heard of this character. No one's ever seen it. But the flip side of that was that means I get to to be the one to introduce it. I get to be the one that shows you the first time you see her fighting, or in a cool shot, or setting up the mood and the tone of the look for the story. And in doing that, I realized, like, shit, that's exciting. That's like being on the ground floor of, name your favorite character, and being to be the one to create the mood and the atmosphere of this thing. And it really pushed me, it challenged me, and it really had me thinking about, well, what is this comic? What is sequential art? Like, how do I interpret it? And the further I went in with these guys on this book, it's kind of weird. The farther it pushed me away from like looking at particular comic book artists. Because when I first got into comics, like at Wildstorm or even at Top Cow, I was very much influenced by the artists I saw. So those artists, they really, oh, I like this guy's style. Ooh, I like Dave Finch. And, to this day, I'm a huge, one of the biggest Mark Silvestri fans. And it always, he's like an impressionistic painter that just happens to draw comics. Like everything is just very impressionistic. He's very cool. But in working on Huerta, like I stopped looking at things like that and started looking more at like still photography or movies and cinematography, because I wasn't so much looking to, copy a style, but I was trying to create a mood and an atmosphere to this thing that nobody really knows about. And so I thought it really forced me to be more creative and be more of a comic book artist, a storyteller, and focus more on how do you use light and shadow to create composition, or how do you use that same light and shadow to create emotion, to give these characters a sense of weight. And yeah, there's always, like, again, like earlier I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of violence. It's going to be a lot of, action and fighting and stuff like that. But there's also moments where you can create this tension or this excitement or the drama of something just on how you frame it, or just on how you depict it. And so working on La Huerta with Brian and Mike and Cece has really furthered me into what is it to be a storyteller? What is it to have these characters emote these certain feelings? And so it's really forced me to start thinking about that. And in doing so, it pushes me to connect more with Mike, so that I can get to those answers to figure out, well, what is she really feeling right here? And that way, maybe I can play on it,
I also want to mention too, it seems like, okay, since you mentioned the backgrounds.
Yeah.
That the backgrounds really stand out to me in La Muerta, and I feel like the settings and all your backgrounds, I can just see them in my mind, like it's like that's another character. It's almost like you make the background a character in the story. So it's like, yeah, the real people, and then like so is that was that always your intention to use that as another?
I think maybe not so much intention, but it's like when I read Mike's scripts, it already starts coming into my head like that. And so, like, I don't know what it is, the way Brian and Mike write, or the way Mike writes, where when I visualize it, I kind of imagine it as a show you'd see on Netflix, or a feature film, like in a theater, And so I'm always creating establishing shots in my head. And I think, to me, at one point in my career, it felt like a crutch, because I was so, what do you call it? I was able to do backgrounds the way I was, that it felt like a crutch, where I was like, well, I'm going to put a bunch of backgrounds so that I don't have to draw big figures. But in a lot of ways, it's also like a thing to lean on in a good way, because those things, like you said, they help depict the story. When you're watching a movie, one of the favorite things about a movie is when they put you in an establishing shot and give you a sense, and maybe pan across this room or this scene or this world, and let you just soak it all in, what you're viewing, and get a sense of what the tone may be, what the character's going through. And in a lot of ways, I try to riff on what's happening versus what Mike may be saying in the wording of the thing, or I try to add more to what the words Mike's adding there. Because sometimes when you're watching a TV show or movie, there'll be narration, and that narration doesn't always report with what you're seeing on the screen. Sometimes they're at odds, or sometimes they're not even related. But that adds to layers of the story that you can kind of get further immersed in as a reader. And to me, those are fun to pull off and pull off well. So to me, that's kind of where my interests lie in that, and I think it helps to create, like I said, a better story, because we're still going to have all those beats and those action and the monsters and the cool shots and the gunplay. But if we can layer that with things like that kind of have you experiencing the story in more than one way, then I feel like that's a plus, you know. So it's fun to try and play those things out, you know.
Just listening to you and like your story, you're almost like the Bob Ross of like storytelling. We got 10 more minutes. Yeah, happy little stories. All right, let's go speed round here. We got 10 more minutes. Let's go through some of these questions that we got right here. So we got Matthew. Your art style, what made you go into that style? Because it's very different from everyone else.
You know, I think it started early when I was looking at influences. Like I said, Mark Silvestri was a big influence, Eduardo Rizzo, Jorge Safino. And then at one point you have to put those books away and you have to kind of figure out, well, what is my job? You know, what is it I'm trying to do here? And to me, it's tell this story. And when I'm telling that story, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'll immediately go look at still photos or cinematography and movies, and how are they framing these characters to get the reader or viewer to focus and make it interesting and dynamic. And so I think it's a combination of those influences, Safino, Eduardo Rizzo, Silvestri, and the idea of constantly, inundating myself with still photography and cinematography, my favorite movies.
We got one right here. Who is your favorite character? And I guess some more of your artists that you maybe who draw that character.
As mentioned earlier, Mark Silvestri's probably still. I always end up looking at Mark Silvestri's art. Like if I have 20 minutes at the end of the night or whatever, I'll flip. I have these big Itoya 11x17 folders with his pencils from his new X-Men run. I was at the studio at the time, so I have these and I'll study them and look at them, and and that was years ago, man. And I'm like, I'll always flip through those and be like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, you know. So yeah, Mark Silvestri, my favorite character. Come on, La Muerta, man. Right?
Besides La Muerta. Besides La Muerta.
Oh, besides La Muerta?
Yeah.
Oh man, I would have to say
First thing that comes to mind.
Mr. Miracle or Batman.
Good choices. Here's a tough one. How are you today?
Oh, jeez. I'm angst-ridden. No, I'm actually, I'm great. You know, it's a fun day. I'm working on a new page of La Muerta, chapter 7. So I'm diving into that and listening to the Team Deacons podcast as I draw. So
good. Here's one from Kristen. What is your favorite aspect of the La Muerta storyline?
I think it's the ability to jam with the teammates I have, and I only say that because at times you don't, like I said, you don't ever really experience that, but at times it's fun because I get to experience that, and I've never experienced that, so I'm trying to make the most of it and like squeeze as much information out of it, because at the end of the day, I think a good book is hard to pull off, you know, and the opportunity to do it with this team is awesome. And so I'm just trying to take as many chances and shots at it with them to see what happens.
Got a love letter. Love your art, Joel, from Melissa Gonzalez.
Thank you so much. I love that you are digging what we're doing. We're slowly just kind of building this thing up, and thank you for supporting La Muerta, and I can't wait for you guys to check out the newest chapter.
For Mad Mike, Joel's the man and a great storyteller.
Your check is in the mail, Mike. I'm sending you your money now.
Julian, yeah, thank you for the Godzilla cover you did for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Of course, Horace.
Speaking of that,
you know,
keep talking.
It's funny. I've been because I have a habit of tagging all of the walls and the city streets of wherever La Muerta comes from. And so in this particular chapter, I'm dealing with a lot of dilapidated theme park rides, And so it's funny, I've been tagging up the theme park area with people's names from the Coffin crew. So
you guys love that. We appreciate that.
You guys gonna have to keep your eyes peeled. I have a couple of the Sworn in there too. Sworn Nation. I got a couple names in there too. So hopefully they'll see that.
I just want to show people that not only do you do.
Oh, that's right.
This birthday present that you did. I love it. It's up at the office here at HQ.
That's
my favorite
awesome.
Gilman and the bride together. When I saw that, I'm like, oh, you can recognize your art instantly as soon as you see that. Also, folks, if you make sure next time, make sure to get a sketch from Joel, because this would be
that's the Calabrese one.
Yes, and another your sketch work is amazing, top notch. People love it because you deliver it when you do the sketches. You
know what it is to me? I think of it as an opportunity to learn how to draw this particular character better. So I just soak it up, man. And it's like, what's that old saying? It's like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So it's kind of what I'm into.
Let's bring it back around to chapter 7 that you work on. So Brian was showing off. Oh, you got the original ones right there.
Yeah. Here, I'll show you right here. So we have a page here. You know what's funny is sometimes, because I'm so old school, like I don't use a computer. I only use it to scan the pages. But a lot of times I have to put patches, right? And let's see if I can show it. But you can see. Right here, there's a little patch because I drew Loco Weird.
Is that like whiteout or something, or what?
No, it's like a piece of paper I had to cut out and glue onto there so that his tank top fit right. Right here. So this, if you were to touch the page, it's like another chunk of paper. But yeah, I'm so old school that a lot of times if I don't like the way something comes out, I'll just redraw it on a separate piece of paper and then I'll patch it in with the glue stick and everything. Here's another page.
Yeah. Oh wow. It's just.
This is page 2, and you see Barrera. He's got Sombra here by the hair, and he's holding her at the gate of Fiesta World, and they're about to break in. So in this panel, they're supposed to be way back in here. They're being lit by the moon, and they're breaking into Fiesta World, which is the dilapidated theme park that Loco and his crew kind of hang out at.
Yeah, so also talking about the backgrounds, but your costume designs are just amazing as well. A lot of thought put into that, for sure.
Oh, thanks, man. Here's this big monster that Brian had suggested we throw in for this particular. This is derived specifically from the storyline that's coming out of Lady Death. And so we start out with
for Deathocalypse. Yes, the full Coffin Comics company-wide event for the storyline. That is amazing. So when me and Julian saw that, we freaked out because that was just holy cow. Seeing Joel Gomez do a huge monster like that.
So check this out. Like we start on this panel, you see this little truck, and the ground is starting to crack around it, right? And Mike had made the suggestion in panel 1, let's have something that we can use to give a sense of scale for when we reveal the monster. So I used the truck and I put it on the very top of this monster's head to give you a sense of the size of this creature. You know what I mean? And then as you can see, as the creature is walking, something jumps off of his leg, his tendrily leg, and it lands, and it's got like 4 arms or something, right? And then you see it's like this demon creature.
Hell yeah. Awesome. So thank you for showing that. So I got to cut you off real quick because we only got 1 minute left. We got the Coffin crew standing by to do the last announcement. We got a Coffin cauldron, so we're going to pick from everyone who ordered this weekend. We're going to pick something, pick out their name, and then they'll receive a free gift. But do you have anything left to say to all the Sworn Nation and the Fiends who are watching? Any final words?
Thank you so much, guys, for supporting La Muerta and backing the latest Kickstarter. I can't wait for you guys to see all that work we're putting into Chapter 7. Keep an eye out for it. We'll try to kind of hint at little panels here and there that I'm allowed to post. I'll try to keep you guys. Thank you, Dylan. I'll try to keep you guys updated with some of the stuff without revealing too much. But if you guys follow me on Facebook and you see on the Sworn Nation, I'm always posting process pictures. So thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate all you guys' support. We really, really appreciate you guys. Can't do it without you. Thank you.
Yeah, and once again, jump on Sworn Nation, folks. The Coffin Comics Facebook group, Sworn Nation, go there. Joel's there. A lot of the other Coffin crew is there. Join the fun. If you haven't done it yet, please do so. Thank you, Joel, for taking your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of work to do, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Joel Gomez. You rule, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, you guys. Take care. See you guys soon.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
Spot that right here, young man.
Whoa.
Whoa, Joel Gomez. Yo, everybody. What's up? What's up? What's up? Holy guacamole, Batman. Brandy Sparkles, get in here for a minute. Wait. Take a step over here. Chippy Calabrese, do that camera up and down. What's with the up? Come on, Brandy.
Go all the way down to the shoes. Amazing shoes.
So the camera's flared.
What are we going to do about this, Julian?
Well, not only is she vocally loud, but visually as well.
Gotcha.
I have to match my now.
We can't escape it. And you think the words hard work is gonna? Well, this is something we could all agree upon, but
He agrees upon my shirt. See, neon
oh
green.
man, I just saw Brandy negotiate with El Presidente some exclusions in her contract where she's saying if we produce Coffin gear, it's got to be in all these fluorescent colors, not black. So I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, folks, I digress. Check it out. Day 3 Crucial Con. Hope you enjoyed what we presented to you. Hope you thought it was crucial. We had a blast presenting it to you. On behalf, we're about to do the Coffin Cauldron for one final for all the people who ordered. But on behalf of Coffin Comics, I would like to thank each and every person who participated, whether it was our panelists or the wonderful talent, cosplayers who demonstrated your wonderful talent, or all of you folks out there, you boils and ghouls, you bad boys and girls who attended and got it.
We love you all.
But I do want to say this before: sacrificial annihilation, wargasm, wargasm.
Oh God.
We're crazy. We're scared crazy over here. It is Saturday, so if we've been drinking some alcohol off to the side, that's our business.
It's okay. We're working hard for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I know we're a little loony over here, but so the premise here is we have a thing called the Coffin Cauldron, and inside the Coffin Cauldron is the little cutouts of the various people who have ordered our cool exclusives over the weekend. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to, Brandy Sparkles is actually going to pick someone's name and announce
Pick
it.
a good one.
Go ahead.
What are we?
You didn't ask permission to go on there.
Oh,
It's getting to be too much with the sparkle. This is like the pride. This is where
My
I go.
rainbows. It's gonna turn it
glows.
rainbow.
When-
Does it glow?
When everybody leaves, I get back in there and
You need to lay in this for an hour to get rid of the color.
that's what I'm saying. So this is what we're gonna do. So we're all the names in here we're gonna pick. But what
Yeah.
are we actually playing for?
Well, let's go for
Julie the
a
Hooligan's gonna
nice
show us.
little pack of some cards, some foliage, some stickers.
So this is a cool prize pack, including a triple card from, gosh, maybe a series 1 or 2.
Yup.
Chromia back in the 90s.
By the great
It's fun having
Sushi.
Julian the Hooligan being our archivist because he could really get deep in the tracks. Wow, cool.
Yeah. Those were a cool find. I thought those were pretty legit.
All kinds of cool,
Yeah.
one of a kind kind of goodie.
He screams
What are
and
you-
squeals
So
when
that's
he
what we're doing.
finds the treasures.
So without further ado, Brandy Sparkles, let's pick one.
To it.
And please announce to the camera.
I will, if I can. Michelle Johnston.
Michelle and Mike. Michelle and Mike. Thank you. Dang, that's great, man.
Always great to have people pick out of this cauldron and get some really cool prizes. I mean,
Let's do it again then.
all right.
Let's get it twisted. Let's go.
Let's go with an awesome classic Evil Ernie print.
So this was from my former company and signed by the artist Jerry Beck. And this was, yeah, super cool. And inked by Sandu Floria. Super cool, man. Deep Track Warehouse Find. So let's pick one out and see who gets this killer Evil Ernie print.
This is the one that I like right here. This is Pascal Bonafoy.
Pascal. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Okay, here we go, everybody. This is the last one for Crucial Con 2020. If you enjoyed this event, if you find it of value, please let us know in the comments, should we do Crucial Con in 2021? Let us know.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we'll have Brandy Sparkles pick out the final name and number, and we're playing for
The winner hollow foil edition of La Muerta Retribution.
Whoa, okay, yeah, we give away a lot of stuff, man.
Oh, she's going deep.
Paul? I can't read it. So,
So
Paul S. We're
Paul
just
S.
gonna go with
Paul
that.
S. Well, this is amazing. I want to say, got to give a big up to the one and only Mr. Jimmy Calabrese, who's actually been the behind-the-scenes directore of coordinating all of this, behind the scenes, doing all the Q&As, pulling it all together.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I love serving you guys. I love serving you, Brian Polito.
Oh, wow.
That's what we do behind the scenes. We all bow.
Okay. I don't know what to do with that exactly. Anyway, so Jimmy Calabrese, thank you so much. Anything you want to say to the nation?
Drink more coffee.
That's
Yeah,
right.
thank you. We love you guys. We love you guys.
All right, folks. Crucial Con was a pleasure to put together for you. Happy to let you know, here we are roaring into October, where it's Halloween every day anyway, but it's really Halloween for Coffin Comics. So expect some fun promotions with All Hallows Evil and Halloween Spooktacular. And then be back for October 7th, the grand preview of Hell Witch Sacrilegious Kickstarter, and then the launch of Hell Witch Sacrilegious Kickstarter on October 14th. You guys have been great. We've been the Coffin Crew. Holla at you later.